Here is another quick label scan, and today we are looking at cereals. So we're going to start off with sprouted rolled oats. I will say this is my top recommendation, and hopefully by the end of the presentation you will understand why, and maybe it will become your top choice. So we're going to focus mainly on ingredients because cereals across the board are pretty high in carbs. So it's safe to assume that you're going to want to add some proteins and or quality fat to balance out your cereal so that you're keeping your blood sugar under control and therefore helping to reduce fat storage and inflammation. So we will kind of glance at the fiber content and sugars as well as total carbs, but unless I note otherwise, it is a cereal that you would want to make sure that you pair appropriately. And I will include the links to my jar and lid analogy video so that you can review that and know how to balance your meals and snacks. So looking at the ingredients for the sprouted rolled oats, you see that all it is sprouted organic gluten-free rolled oats. When we sprout nuts, seeds, and grains, it makes them think they're becoming a plant, so they release nutrients that otherwise remain dormant. So we're getting more nutrients from the oats, and what's nice is that they're organic and gluten-free. So less inflammatory across the board, and the fact that it's only one ingredient is huge. You'll see that carbohydrates per serving, so a third cup is a serving, is 23 grams. I like to see less than 30 grams of carbs per meal. And so this falls within that range. And then looking at 4 grams of fiber per serving. So oats are rich in soluble fiber, which is the fiber that can bind to toxins, harmful forms of estrogen, and excess cholesterol in the blood. And so that is helpful for lowering cholesterol. And 0 grams of sugar and 0 grams, therefore, of added sugar. So this is a great choice. And if you wanted to add a little bit of sweetness, you could add blueberries or any berries. You could add a little bit of banana, maybe even like a dish of pure maple syrup or raw local honey, and probably still be within that total carb amount of less than 30 grams. But then you do want to add the protein and the quality fat, as we mentioned. So let's go on to look at some other options that are pretty popular cereals consumed by Americans. So we see ingredients here of the corn flakes. Corn is making up 90% of the cereal itself. And I will say I would like to see this organic corn would be the ideal because corn and soy are very genetically modified. So therefore more pesticides, more chemicals, more pro-inflammatory. So, yes, it's corn and that's a 1 ingredient item, but the second ingredient is sugar. So I like to say if sugar is within the first 5 ingredients, consider it more like a dessert that you're consuming. And you will see that that is a theme with the cereals that we look at. But ideally, we want to try to avoid that. But again, corn is making up 90%, so it's not that much sugar, but it's still present. And then all of the other ingredients are pretty straightforward. So I would say on a good, better, best spectrum, this would be a better choice, but I do think that the oats for sure are going to be a best. Looking at Raisin Bran Crunch. So ingredients, whole grain wheat, sounds good. Sugar, second ingredient within those first 5. Rice, raisins, which is going to be sugar as well. However, if the raisin did have sugar added to it, they should specify. And so it seems like they're just dried grapes is what they're using, which is great. So it's more of a natural sugar. And then we go on through wheat bran, whole grain oats, brown sugar syrup, some more sugar. So minimal ingredients, but 2 forms, technically 3 forms if we include the raisins of sugar within that small ingredient list. So good, better, best. Again, I would say maybe this is better, but I always think it's best if we can aim for the best. However, if this is something that you want to consume, then maybe just mix it with a little bit of oats or use it as like kind of granola replacement on your oatmeal so that you're getting majority of a 1 ingredient item and then getting a little bit of this. And something that is a little tricky, and I didn't even catch on to this while looking, is then if we continue going down the ingredient list, I was looking at the bold items that caught my eye, but then it says contains 2% or less of, and yet we have more corn syrup, salt, natural flavor. So natural flavor can kind of be this umbrella term for over 200 different chemicals. So I do try to avoid natural flavors as much as possible. Modified cornstarch. So again, we have corn, a form of corn that's non-organic is something that I personally try to avoid. Molasses is a, kind of a sweetness. Palm oil is pro-inflammatory. Cinnamon totally fine. Honey, probably good. Kind of depends on the quality of honey that they're using, but I would say, ideal would be having a honey or a maple syrup or molasses as the sugar, and then like dried fruits like the raisins. So I would still keep it a better, but then when we're looking at total carbs, you see one serving is 1 cup, 46 grams of carbs. That's a lot. And there isn't much protein or fat in it. So we're going to need to add some additional food to it to fill us up and to really balance our blood sugar. Still have 4 grams of fiber, very similar to the oats, but total sugar is 19, including 13 grams of added sugar. Ideally, I would encourage you to aim for no more than 5 grams of added sugar per serving, or even per meal. So if you're having multiple servings, which I know for myself, when I used to eat a lot of cereal, I would have multiple servings because it didn't fill me up. So if that is something that you're going to have, 2 or 3 cups, then this would add up to be, with 13 grams of added sugar, 26 to 39 grams of added sugar in your bowl of cereal for breakfast. So that's how you're starting your day. And that is really going to cause your blood sugar to fluctuate and very likely lead to more fat storage and definitely more inflammation. Reese's Puffs. When I was looking up popular cereals, this was one of the top ones. So we're going to look at it. And whole grain corn is the first ingredient. Again, wish that was organic. Sugar, second ingredient. Not a surprise at all. I mean, this is basically eating dessert for breakfast. It's not hidden in any way, in my opinion. And then Reese's peanut butter. So peanuts, ideally, I like to see peanuts organic, but that's very rare to find when you're looking at a processed food item. So that's just something to keep in mind if you're buying peanuts or peanut butter. Sugar, monoglyceride, peanut oil, so again, more pro-inflammatory, salt, molasses, and then cornstarch, which again, more corn, dextrose, sugar, cornmeal, more corn syrup, more corn and sugar, canola oil, pro-inflammatory, and kind of the list goes on. I also circled natural flavor again. And then they have all of these vitamins and minerals that they're adding, probably because there are no vitamins and minerals in the food or ingredients themselves. So they want to add that to make it healthier. And when we're looking at total grams of carbs per serving, so 3/4 cup, 22 grams of carbs. That's less than I would have assumed, but we see that there are 9 grams of sugar and 12 grams of other carbs. So that other carb can be starches, or it could potentially even be possibly added sweeteners, like artificial sweeteners. I don't see any listed in their ingredient list, and I'm not sure. I guess the starch could be coming from the corn products than the whole grain corn. But really being mindful that this one, although it's not super high in carbs, it is a rather small serving, and it does lack the fiber as well as the protein and the quality fat. It's more pro-inflammatory based on these ingredients. So if you're going to have this, go ahead and just have it as dessert and have it after a meal that has adequate protein, some veggies, and quality fat, and then use this as your carb at the meal. That would be the ideal. Kashi Go Rise, I think used to be called Kashi Go Lean, and this is the original. So we have soy protein concentrate. Again, corn and soy are 2 of the most genetically modified ingredients. I do like to see organic, especially anytime it's a soy product. And that is going to be the most prominent ingredient. And then yellow corn flour. So top 2 right there would be nice to see organic. And then we have cane syrup is added. There is honey, but as I noted, if we're going to do a sweetener, I'd rather see it via honey or a maple syrup. And then we're also going on to see more cane sugar, soy flour, so pro-inflammatory, and then those natural flavors sneak in there as well. So 1 1/4 cup is a serving size with 43 grams of carbs, but look at that, 12 grams of fiber. That's a lot. And only 8 grams of sugar, but 7 grams of added sugar. So again, I mentioned I would ideally see that no more than 5 grams. Good, better, best. I would say it's better, but there is a lot of pro-inflammatory ingredients in here. And as you'll see as the theme, when we consume processed foods, we're very likely to have inflammatory items in it or inflammatory ingredients. So the more you can stick to whole real foods, the better. Again, doesn't mean you have to avoid these cereals entirely, but maybe you consider mixing them with some oats or even like brown rice puffs or something that is going to add a little bit of volume if that's what you're looking for, or even better yet, have a very small portion and eat some, say, breakfast sausage or egg or seed mixture alongside of it, and ideally prior to, so that you're keeping your blood sugar more controlled. And then we're looking at muesli, which this is one of my go-to recommendations. I am a little bummed that it has sunflower oil in it. I'm sure you can find one without. Sunflower oil is rather inflammatory. Sunflower seeds, totally fine. So all the other ingredients within this product are looking great. It's just the sunflower oil that I'm not a huge fan of. I do love that there is no added sugar. There's a decent amount of fiber. The carbohydrate content is pretty high considering it's a 1/4 cup for the serving, but because it is whole real food and ingredients, it's going to be more filling and keep you satisfied for longer. However, I would encourage you to still add some protein and fat. So if that means even just adding extra nuts and seeds, and then maybe sprinkling with some hemp hearts or a little bit of collagen peptides before you pour your milk of choice in, that would be adequate balance. So good, better, best, I would say this is a better to best option. And looking at a hearty morning fiber cereal. So Cascadian Farm, they put out some good products, but again, we have that sunflower oil and cane sugar within the first 5 ingredients is the sugar. And then invert cane syrup. So they also do add molasses, natural flavors. So just things to kind of keep an eye out for. 51 grams of carbs for 1 cup, so rather carb heavy. 10 grams of fiber though, which is a lot. And to mention, I do not do net carbs. So net carbs meaning you would take total fiber and subtract that from total carbs. So here we would be looking at 51 minus 10, therefore saying 41 grams of carbs per serving. I look at it total carbs, so 51, and then you want to make sure there's fiber in there. There should be fiber in every meal that you consume, especially if we're trying to, if we are reaching for whole real foods, we shouldn't have to worry about fiber not being a factor, unless you're not consuming any like fruit, vegetables, nuts, seeds, or whatnot. And then added sugar, 10 grams. So all of the sugar that it contains is added sugar. So good, better, best, I would say better, but ideal would be avoiding. And then we're looking at a Catalina Crunch, which is going to be a keto cereal or keto-friendly cereal. So again, we see that sunflower oil, pro-inflammatory, is lower on the list, but not too low. It's the 3rd ingredient. It looks a bit lower because of the Catalina flour description is taking up a couple lines. And then natural flavors again, and stevia extract. I'm not a proponent of any artificial sweeteners, and I include stevia and monk fruit in that artificial umbrella or under the umbrella. And they can impact insulin resistance and therefore increase fat storage and inflammation. So I don't recommend use of that. And here you'll see it is rather low carb, 14 grams of carbs per half cup, but that's not all that much less than the Reeses that were like 22 grams of carbs for, I believe it was 1 cup. So it's actually less than, if I'm remembering those numbers correctly. And here we have 9 grams of fiber, which is excellent, 0 grams of sugar, 0 grams of added sugar. And that's because they're using that stevia extract as a sweetener. So there is no actual sugar being added. And then it does have adequate protein. So it's adding a protein powder in that flour blend and has some fat. So it's pretty balanced. So this would be a better choice. So if you're looking to kind of wean off of other very processed cereals that contain a lot of corn or soy or real sugar, I guess, this could be an option. But I will say that these artificial sweeteners can be 200 to 600 times sweeter than actual sugar and therefore keep you just as addicted. So I think you would be better off mixing, say, your favorite cereal with another cereal that maybe is not as sweet, or even mixing it with just some like nuts and seeds to add some volume to it, or just decreasing your serving size amount and slowly decreasing further and further. But the ideal is that when you're looking at the ingredients, you want to see that you can recognize the ingredients and technically make it on your own. So although the muesli, had the sunflower oil in it, this is a product that you could make on your own. It's wheat, which you could eliminate. You could just do oats. You do dates, sunflower seeds, raisins, and then whole grains if you wanted to do like some sprouted or puffed brown rice, and then add almonds, flax, and walnuts. So this is something that, I could make this. So this is going to be a best choice with the exception of that sunflower oil. And then obviously the oats being a one ingredient item. So keeping that in mind when you're looking at your cereals, evaluate the ingredients before you even look at the carb protein fat ratio, because for the most part, it's going to be off. You want to just make sure that you are putting whole, real anti-inflammatory foods into your body. And if you have any questions, please include them below.